The problem with tunnels under Gaza and with the Israeli plan to flood the tunnels is that this is likely to kill hostages as well as it's going to compromise and kill Hamas guerrillas. The hostage families have been angered about what they see as threats to uh, their loved ones and leaked audio conversations, leaked exchanges have made it into the Israeli news. You can hear the anger at government conduct and claims, for example, made by former hostages that Netanyahu is detached from their concerns and from their safety. And one former hostage says that she was terrified that it would not be Hamas but Israel that killed us. And she also confirmed that the hostages were being held in tunnels and separated and moved around. And she says there should be no hierarchy, everyone is important, and that Netanyahu in particular lacks responsibility and is heartless. When he was asked about the flooding of the tunnels the other day in Washington, when President Zelensky was visiting, Joe Biden said there are no hostages in the tunnels. But I don't know that as a fact. And he didn't go on and explain what he meant there. But there's clearly a complete contradiction. And the problem with flooding the tunnels, putting seawater in the tunnels, is not only that it can drown the hostages, but it can weaken the structure. And it's a tactic. This isn't without credibility. It was tried. This is a tactic which was carried out by Egypt in the south of the territory, and the seawater leaked and damaged crops. So effectively, it's salting the earth, isn't it? It might flood the tunnels, it might destroy the tunnels, but that seawater is then there for a significant period of time. And and it could cause as many problems in the future as as the presence of Hamas today is causing now. But the subterranean theatre of operations is where the problem is. So Israel may have achieved some sort of dominance on the ground, but under the ground, that's where the Hamas guerrillas are hiding. It presents what a former Israeli intelligence officer, Miri Eisen, says it represents a challenge. And his understanding is that in order to take control, Israel needs to break the Hamas command structure. And at the moment, the Hamas commanders, the chief command, is hiding underground and is planning to hold out long enough until Israel is forced into a ceasefire by the turn of global opinion. As for the claim made by the Israelis that it has at least 500 Hamas fighters in captivity and it's interrogating them and it's basing its current actions, its current military plans on the outcome of those interrogations, well, the Hamas High Command says you don't have 500 Hamas guerrillas in captivity. These are civilians, and it's probably very difficult to say, because nobody's wearing military fatigues. Nobody has got any identification. So how does Israel know? How does Hamas know? As for Netanyahu himself, he is fighting for his political survival. and that probably is a greater priority for him than the rescue of the hostages. Netanyahu is betting his survival on opposing a Palestinian state, on being able to say he is the person who has obliterated Hamas, even if this means losing the hostages. Israel has lost hostages before, and has celebrated the determination Israel will not lose, and this hard man image, and that's something that Netanyahu wants to project. But Netanyahu is losing votes in recent polls. Netanyahu is just becoming more and more unpopular. And where Likud loses votes, Benny Gantz is gaining them. Now that's not great. He's still hawkish, and it is extraordinary that during a war, the leader of the country should become more unpopular. It is quite extraordinary. But Netanyahu's response has been to reject the 1993 Oslo Accords option for a two-state solution, and say that he won't allow Israel to repeat the mistakes of Oslo after the great sacrifices of our civilians and soldiers. This is about his political survival. This is where the Israeli ambassador to the UK comes in, and it's testing the ground to see, is this the way forward for him? This is not about Israel's objectives. It's about Netanyahu's objectives. It's not about the best choice militarily or the best choice politically. It's about Netanyahu's personal survival. And this is not about US interests or Israeli interests. This is about Netanyahu's interests. And Netanyahu, like Hamas, will cling on for as long as he possibly can, until he thinks the mood is such that he can no longer cling on. But he believes that if he can stay long enough and keep the conversation going about the post-Hamas world, which he vaguely suggests is going to be something which will involve the neighbouring Arabic states rather than the Palestinian Authority, then he will survive this particular blip in his leadership. He's only just become Prime Minister again, and the next elections aren't due until 2026. So Netanyahu thinks he can survive this. I think he's a fool.